Hello and welcome to Prairie Pulse. Coming up a little bit later in the show, we'll hear and see a performance from a local musician, Connie Germanson. But first, joining us now on the set is a producer at Prairie Public, Kim Stingham. Kim, thanks so much for joining us today.
You bet, John.
Well, we've got you here today for a couple of reasons, but as we start, first, tell the folks a little bit about yourself and your background, where you're originally from.
Well, that's always a question that's hard to answer because I'm an Air Force brat. So I grew up pretty much moving about every 18 months. I went to 9.5 different schools as a kid. But when my dad retired from the military, we settled in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Both my parents are from that area. So mostly I say I'm a North Dakotan, though, because I've lived here more than anywhere else.
Well, with that said, you've lived here a while. When did you first start working at Prairie Public?
I started here in 1995. Originally, I had been hired on to organize an online service that we were demonstrating the potential of. So I came in and tried to get Prairie Online expanded out statewide, and just as we were on the verge of doing that, the Internet Operating Committee decided that they were going to allow anybody access to the internet. So the Prairie Online continued for a few years, but as the program wound down and we demonstrated the concept would work, but it was no longer viable, then I moved into television and I've been there ever since.
Well, with that said, as I understand, of course, you started with Prairie Public, but you really had very little television background.
I didn't. I had been on an advisory committee. My background had been in the economic development arena, and I had been on an advisory committee for Prairie Public Television doing an entrepreneurship training that had an air component as well as a site component. And when an opening for a producer came up, the producer here that I worked with had encouraged me strongly to apply for the job, and I said, no, I don't know anything about TV. I'm in public relations and in business training. They said, you don't need to know about the television. We'll teach you that. What we need is somebody who does research, who understands and can manage a budget. And yeah, 22 years later, I'm still doing a job I didn't think I was qualified for.
Well, with that said, can you talk about some of the documentaries, some maybe the more memorable that you've worked on in those, well, it wasn't 22 years, but it was a number of years with Prairie Public?
Sure. Probably well, it's hard to have a favorite because it's like, you know, who's your favorite child? No, I just love them all. But I think the one that is closest to my heart maybe is the documentary I did on homesteading. I'd grown up reading Laura Ingalls Wilder books my whole life and really was fascinated with that period. So when I had an opportunity to really get into what it was like living then and why people homesteaded, what the driving forces were, I was really thrilled to be able to spend time on that. Another favorite of mine would probably be one of my more recent documentaries, I Am a Person. That was a program that we were contracted to do to show people after the closing of Grafton State Schools, how has treatment of the developmentally delayed changed in this state. And I hadn't lived here during when people were just routinely stuck in Grafton and left to their own devices, more or less. The changes that have been made are really tremendous, and the people that I met there were so lovely. Really, during the course of this, I spent time with the families that have children that need special support, of adults, and they were just all so friendly and so open and willing to talk to us because they really want people to know that these are people too. They're not just somebody you have to shove away and not see again. They have a role in our communities, so that was wonderful.
Mm-hmm. And Kim, you've won a number of awards, and was homesteading, I think, may have won one of your biggest awards ever.
Yeah, my mom still introduces me as, this is my daughter Kim. She won an Emmy, which is really exciting. I have it sitting in a special place in my living room. So to win an Emmy was really a high point that indicated that, yeah, even though I might not have started out being a television guy, I kind of know what I'm doing now. So that's terrific.
But with that said, can you talk about the work that goes on in doing, producing these shows? I mean, some of them are local and maybe don't require as much work. When I say as much, because it's a lot of research, a lot of. So talk about that. What all goes into that?
Well, it's really, a producer is the project manager. It's our responsibility is not only making sure that we create a program or a documentary or a studio show that tells the story that we were intending to tell, but it comes in on time, on budget, and looking as good as it possibly can. And my boss, and I think my mentor, Bob Dambach, always said, my job is to give them all the encouragement and once in a while yell at them, you're spending too much money. Yeah, so it's a lot of research going on before we ever start filming. It's pretty typical for me to spend a year to 18 months just getting expertise up in the field so that I know who we need to talk to and what the important parts of the story are before we start ever going into the field and doing interviews.
With that said, Kim, because you're usually sitting on this side of the camera, kind of behind the camera.
Yeah.
But what's real important in conducting a good interview and getting that information from an individual?
Well, first, I think it's really most important is listening to what they say. Because if I go in, and I very rarely anymore have a list of questions, I carry those in my head. But as people talk, just like now, you said, oh, you mentioned interviewing. What goes into that? You have to be able to follow up and ask more, and that's really where most of the really interesting thoughts lay, is about 3 questions below what I had intended to ask. So it's kind of a conversation with some structure in it.
Okay. Well, let's now talk about one of the reasons you're here today is you're sort of retiring. You may never go away completely, but you're working on sort of the final for now, the Nonpartisan League. Can you tell the folks about what that's going to be about, and of course, what was the Nonpartisan League?
Yeah, the NPL, and its official title now is The Rise and Fall of the Nonpartisan League, is probably the biggest project I've worked on. It's 3 hours of content starting in the late 1800s, telling the story of how North Dakota farmers had been so economically and socially disadvantaged by the controls exerted from Minneapolis and the railroads, the banks, the Chamber of Commerce, which was the grain broker community, by the mills, by transportation, that they were just barely squeaking by. And after a number of movements had flashed up and fizzled out, the Nonpartisan League in 1914 was able to set itself on a path that led to a mill that was owned by the state and operated for the benefit of farmers, to a terminal elevator to get a fair price for farmers' grain, to a state bank that would be able to get farmers the money they needed to acquire land, to acquire equipment, to get a crop in the ground and sell it again at a profit to the mill and the elevator. It's unique in the country. There were a number of state banks that had been created, but only in North Dakota did that actually continue as a viable financial institution. So although they were pretty much done as a party in 1922, they still, that continues to this day to support the whole state.
Mm-hmm. You said one of your biggest, how many hours, days, weeks, months? Because I know you're working on other things at the same time, but really, how much time have you spent on this to get this project done?
Well, I've probably been working on it. If I were to take out all my other projects and just add up the hours, I've spent at least 2.5 years working on this. And that's still, it's a lot less than Ken Burns. And I'm not producing quite the number of hours that he does on some of his projects, but it's been a long time coming.
Sure. You know, you mentioned some of your documentaries, and of course you get to travel with some of these. You've been out of the country even on some of these, like Uganda. What's that like when you get to go out and do that? Well,
I have to tell you, the travel part is very nerve-wracking, because it's not like when you go out for a vacation. I'm there, I have to make sure that we have somewhere for the crew to stay, that the crew all get to the same place with all the equipment they need, that our and many of these people are a long distance away, that they're in their interview spots at the time I need them to be. And there's just a lot of long distance organizing, which can be kind of nerve-wracking. I very much enjoy the flights home. But you mentioned Uganda. That was not a place I probably ever would have gone as a vacation spot, but it was absolutely beautiful, and I would go back there again in a minute.
Well, with that said, with the travels you do, and even with the regional documentaries you worked on, what is Prairie Public's and Prairie Public's role of producing these? Because we're basically the only station doing this type of documentary work.
Yeah, I think it's important for Prairie Public, and it's something I'm very proud of, that we're able to tell the history of this region, represent us as a people, and make sure that other parts of the country know our really deep cultural heritage. Because right now, North Dakota is kind of a joke. You know, you're from North Dakota, oh yeah, with the Mount Rushmore, right? Which isn't at all true, although there aren't as many people here as in New York City. We have every bit as interesting a history and a culture, and it's nice that we do documentaries that not only spread that to the rest of the country, but also remind us here that what we have to offer.
Mm-hmm. Kim, you said 22 years. How has the technology changed? I mean, you talked about starting with online and sort of the internet and evolving into documentary work. So cameras have changed, media has changed. Talk about that changing technology over your time here.
It's really accelerated, but I think the most important and exciting part was when we switched from recording on tape and having to edit from one tape to another. It was a very time-consuming process. And if you made a mistake in the second minute and you're 20 minutes into your program, in order to fix the mistake, you had to go back and redo all the 18 minutes that you just finished. So being able to do that now on a computer where we have digital files and we can make changes on the fly. It takes, I think, still as long to make a documentary, but it's better because we're able to take more care and not suffer the consequences of changing our mind partway through.
With all that you've been able to do, can you talk about managing, the database and all the clips and all the shows that you've handled over the years?
Sure. And that's something else that has really changed a lot over the years. Recording on tape, we had physical tapes that we needed to keep track of. There's a whole room in the basement here at Prairie Public that is just rack upon rack upon rack of interviews and pretty landscape pictures and video of people doing interesting things. And if you don't know where a particular shot is, you might as well not keep anything. So we have a cataloging system that I helped design. The newest version of. It's been around since I started in one form or another. But now we can say, okay, I need a shot of a buffalo breathing out smoke in the winter. And you can go to our database, type in a keyword, and it will tell you exactly where in the studio that particular shot is. And that's been a lifesaver a number of times. And saves a lot of money because you don't have to keep shooting the same thing over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Well, Prairie Public now posts to YouTube, and in fact, we try to post things pretty much immediately. Why did we even start doing this?
The YouTube, that started with one of our broadcast engineers, Chris Wilkes, was a real fan of YouTube. I had not looked at it much because in the early days, it was mostly just, somebody turned on a recorder and talked into the camera. But he convinced me that if we took our documentaries, instead of having them seen just here in this area when they're broadcast the 1 or 2 or 3 times that they're put into the schedule, they can be available forever and seen by anybody anywhere. And I went along with it, we worked it out, and early on as we were starting to add documentaries, we suddenly saw that we had a spike in viewership for one of our documentaries on hydrogen fuel. And when we looked at the analytics, we could see it was coming from Saudi Arabia. So somebody in the oil-producing countries is very interested in what the Energy and Environmental Research Center is doing here in North Dakota, trying to find alternate fuel sources.
Okay. Ken, I got about a minute left. You know, what do you feel like you've learned over the years? You mentioned Bob Dambeck and all the people that you worked with here at Prairie Public.
I think really the most important thing I learned is that the story is the important thing. It can look as beautiful as anything, but if you don't have a story with some heart to it, people aren't going to want to watch it for very long.
Why do you think public television is still vital and important for viewers?
Because we do something nobody else will. We're able to go out and find local stories, represent our history, represent our culture. I know I've said that before, but it's so important. North Dakota does not have to be a black hole in the middle of the continent. We have a story to tell, and public television is the only way we have to tell it.
Well, Kim, we are out of time, but if people want more information, and as you sort of go off into the sunset with your husband, Steve, and enjoying retirement, how can people get more information? Where can they go?
They can go right to our YouTube channel and see every documentary that we have made in the last 30 years. YouTube.com/PrairiePublicBcast is our channel.
All right. Kim, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, John.
Stay tuned for more. Connie Germanson of Albertville, Minnesota, grew up with a love for horses and the rodeo. So it's natural that her music reflects these passions. Her beautiful voice lends itself to the heartfelt lyrics that describe experiences ranging from being a mother to overcoming obstacles.
I met a bronc rider at a big rodeo. I fell in love, I told him so. But this was his answer to me: to ride hard and travel far, I've got to be free. He said, I'll ride for 8 seconds, I'm gonna spur with all I've got. I'm gonna ride for 8 seconds, I wanna be the man on top. He said, I'll ride for 8 seconds, gotta lift on that buck rein. I'm gonna ride for 8 seconds, everybody's gonna know my name. I've tried to move on, but it is hard. I've loved this man right from the start. I watch him ride broncs at the rodeos. Oh, and yes, he's the man who wears the gold. He's gonna ride for 8 seconds, gonna spur with all he's got. He's gonna ride for 8 seconds, wants to be the man on top. He's gonna ride for 8 seconds, gotta lift on that buck rein. He's gonna ride for 8 seconds, everybody's gonna know his name. He's the saddle bronc champion of the world. Oh, if I could only be his girl. He's gonna ride for 8 seconds, gonna spur with all he's got. He's gonna ride for 8 seconds, wants to be the man on top. He's gonna ride for 8 seconds, gotta lift on that buck rein. He's gonna ride for 8 seconds, everybody's gonna know his name. Oh yes, he rides for 8 seconds, and everybody knows his name.
Hi, I'm Connie Germanson from Albertville, Minnesota. I write and sing a lot of country songs. I grew up in western North Dakota, so I have country roots, and my songs are just about real life. Somehow is just about sometimes things can get really tough, and you got to deal with it, and writing music is kind of my therapy. And so that song is just written about some tough things in my life, and I knew somehow I was going to be able to get through them.
two-way crossroads in my life, and it seems there is no wrong way, there's no right. There's gotta be a way to make it all work out somehow. I don't understand why people have to talk. They don't even know what's going on. They haven't walked the walk. There's gotta be a way to make it all work out somehow. Somehow I will move on. Somehow I will find peace. Somehow I will let it go. I will get through this grief somehow. Somehow I will move on. Somehow I will find peace. Somehow I will let it go. I will get through this grief somehow. Somehow. To a crossroads in my life, and it seems there is no wrong way. He's got no gold buckles, no trophies to show for the bulls and the broncs that he's rode. For he's never been first at the big rodeo, and on most of his rides he's been throwed. He's broken, he's skinny, he's always been that. Many times he's spent more than he's earned. He keeps his records in the band of his hat. He's forgotten about twice what he's learned. Well, he curses the life when he's calving again in the half-melted snow and the mud. But he figures it's worth it as soon as he sees an old cottonwood starting to bud. Then summer comes dusty, hot, windy, and brown, and he don't often make it to town. He works through the night when the water tank's dry, cattle scattered and fences tore down. Well, he grins in October while riding the sweep as he feels the cool autumn wind blow. Through dancing gold aspens, sees cattle strung out on the trail in the valley below. He's a pretty good cowboy, he's had a good life, and he hopes he can ride till he dies. He's wealthy in friends and memories, and the stars in the high desert skies. He's a pretty good cowboy, he ain't great or famous, just glad he ain't riding a desk. the sage-covered hills of the West.
Well, that's all we have on Prairie Pulse for this week. But as always, thanks for watching.
Funding for Minnesota Legacy programs are provided by a grant from the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008, and by the members of Prairie Public.